Greetings, fellow geographers. My name's Iain Hay, and I'm the inaugural director of the Royal Geographical Society of South Australia. I've recently been employed in this role as a half-time role for 1 year in the first instance, and this is the first video in what I hope is going to be a series of them over time, where I introduce and talk a little about some of the things that are going on within the society. And what I want to do today is actually just provide you with a bit of an introduction as to who I am, for those of you who I've not already met and don't actually already know anything about me. And I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. I thought I would just run through a few things, like what are my personal links to the Royal Geographical Society, who am I, a little about my career and other sorts of connections within geography and more broadly. The personal sort of links that I have with the society go back to the 1990s. I spent some time on council, and as some of you know, I was the editor of the South Australian Geographical Journal when we changed from its previous cover to a new, more startling blue colour and implemented a number of other changes. I sort of stepped away a little bit from having an active role within the society during the late 1990s as other things within my career moved along, but I rejoined more recently, and as you might be aware, I've been chair of the Research Publications and Awards Committee for a number of years, and I've also been one of the Society's vice presidents. When the opportunity to take on the inaugural role and transformative role of director within the Society, I leapt at it. It's a wonderful opportunity that I really look forward to, and I have a number of new ideas for the trajectory of the Society, but I'll discuss or talk about some of those in some of the later videos in this series. So who am I? As I said, my name's Iain Hay. As you might have gathered from my accent, I am a New Zealander. My parents are, my late father and my mother are Scots, and they both sort of brought an interesting, different perspectives to geography, to my own background. So my father spent most of the 1950s in the merchant navy and travelled the world extensively. So he was sort of part a geographer by nature. And when we were children, we spent holidays in different parts of New Zealand when we were growing up. My mother's perspective on geography was a little bit different. She was a reluctant migrant to New Zealand. She moved there with my dad. After 1 year, she didn't particularly like it, but they weren't in a financial position to return to Scotland, and so she was a somewhat reluctant migrant in New Zealand, and her experiences of living in one place but feeling at home in another, I suppose, were a part of my understanding of some of the issues that lie in geography and our relationships to place and to the effects of space on how we get on. I actually came to geography by accident in school. I was meant to be studying history, but a number of other students in the class managed to make a very cogent argument to the school that we should instead study geography, and lo and behold, I found myself in a series of geography classes and enjoyed them, and subsequently went and joined the Royal New Zealand Air Force, and they sent me to university at Canterbury, where I did a science honours degree in geography. And then I was recruited to go to, I'd left the Air Force by that stage, and then I was recruited to go to a junior lectureship at Massey University, where I did a Master of Arts in geography. And then I received a Fulbright scholarship and went to the University of Washington in Seattle, where I did my PhD. When I finished my doctorate, I moved to Australia and made my way to Flinders University in 1992, and that's where I spent most of my career. I did have a number of sabbaticals in Auckland, Bristol, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Kentucky. I led Flinders University School of Geography, Population and Environmental Management for 6 years in the early 2000s, and then I was seconded to the Australian Learning and Teaching Council for 2 years, and in that role I led the humanities, arts and social sciences, but focusing particularly on geography and history, to develop the learning and teaching academic standards for Australian universities. I can tell you some other time what all of that meant, but one of the really key outcomes of that was that we developed the first nationally agreed definition of geography amongst all of the societies and organisations across the country. And I think that is a tremendously useful starting point for any discussions about geography. After the time with ALTC, I came back to Flinders, and I retired in 2019 after spending some time as Dean in the new College of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences. My particular research in geography has focused on geographies of oppression and domination, and I received a higher doctorate from the University of Canterbury for about a quarter of a century's work in that area. I've also done work on qualitative research methods in human geography, ethics, and a bit of work on geographies of the super rich. I've always thought in an academic career there's 3 fundamental axes, and they need all to be treated evenly, and those are research, teaching and service. So I've talked a little about my research. My teaching has focused pretty much on social and cultural geography, research methods and environmental management. And in 2006 I was very fortunate to receive the Prime Minister's Award for Australian University Teacher of the Year. My service roles, that being the third axis that I've really thought about as being fundamentally important, have included as Secretary and President of the Institute of Australian Geographers, as Chair of the Academy of Sciences National Committee for Geography, and then most recently I spent 8 years as Vice President of the International Geographical Union, which is arguably the largest and most cosmopolitan geographical organisation in the world. In all of those roles I learned on the job, and I think I learned a lot, but I also did what I could to try to supplement those on the job experiences with some formal educational opportunities, and so I completed a master's degree in educational management, and I also worked with the Australian Institute of Company Directors and with courses that they undertake. Since I retired, I've taken on it's one of the, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this idea of doing many things that you might otherwise never have had the opportunity to do. And so I've taken on a number of board roles, including with a healthcare insurer called HCI, with the SACE board, St Peter's Collegiate School here in Adelaide, and I've also joined the St Mark's College Common Room, and I'm a member of the Adelaide Hills Council Sustainability Advisory Group. And I hope that the connections and the lessons that the connections that I'm making and the lessons that I'm learning in each of those roles are things that I can bring to the RGSSA to help drive this whole new set of ambitions that the society has. At a personal level, I live in the Adelaide Hills, and I've lived here for about 8 years with my wife Tanya and our Staffordshire Bull Terrier Samson. And in the 8 years we spent a great deal of time and energy trying to rebuild a garden, large parts of which were significantly overgrown. I love travelling. I really do, and I guess that's not too surprising for someone who is a geographer, but there's still so much more of South Australia that I have to explore. I've been passionate in the past about cycling and about running, but sadly my back no longer allows me to do either of those. But Tanya and I are also very keen scuba divers whenever we have the opportunity to do that. So just to wrap up, I am genuinely and enthusiastically looking forward to this role as the RGSSA Director. I share the Council's ambitions for it to be a transformative role for the Society, and I look forward to working with you and all the other members of the Society to help with that process. And I look forward to seeing each of you in person and again in the future through this video connection. Thanks very much.